Most paintings try to imitate the world. Skin should look like skin. Grass should look green. Shadows should behave logically. For centuries, this was simply how painting worked. Artists trained themselves to observe carefully and reproduce what they saw. But in 1905, a portrait appeared in Paris where the face was green, the shadows were purple, and the colors seemed completely wrong. Visitors stared at the strange portrait with confusion. Critics quickly dismissed the paintings surrounding it as chaotic and uncontrolled. One writer famously looked at the canvases and described the artists responsible as wild beasts. The insult was meant to mock their work. Instead, the phrase quietly became the name of a new movement that would soon change modern art. The exhibition where this moment unfolded was the Salon d'Automne, one of the most important art shows in early 20th century Paris. Artists often used it to introduce new ideas and challenge expectations. Yet even within that experimental environment, the paintings in one gallery room felt unusually aggressive, as if color itself had suddenly stopped obeying traditional rules. At the center of the controversy stood Henri Matisse, a painter who believed that color could do far more than describe objects. Among the works he exhibited that year was a portrait of his wife titled Woman with a Hat, a painting that would soon become one of the defining images of early modern art. At first glance, the painting appears traditional. A seated woman faces the viewer, wearing a fashionable hat decorated with flowers and feathers. Portraits like this had existed for centuries. Yet the moment viewers looked closer, the illusion of normality collapsed. The face was built from unexpected colors: green, pink, blue, and orange placed beside each other in visible strokes. Instead of blending colors smoothly, Matisse allowed each brushstroke to remain distinct. The result felt strangely energetic, almost electric. Critics believed the painter had simply abandoned technical discipline. But Matisse was doing something far more deliberate. He was exploring the possibility that color could express emotion directly, without needing to imitate the natural world. This idea became the foundation of Fauvism. The name came from the insult written by the critic who first saw the paintings. Yet what appeared wild was actually a thoughtful reconsideration of painting itself. The Fauves believed that color possessed its own emotional power, independent from the objects it represented. To understand why this approach felt so radical, we need to remember how painting had functioned for centuries. Since the Renaissance, European artists treated painting as a window into reality. Perspective created depth, shadows behaved according to light, and colors reinforced the illusion that viewers were looking through a window into the physical world. By the late 19th century, however, artists had begun quietly questioning this system. The Impressionists loosened the strict rules of representation by focusing on fleeting light and atmosphere. Their paintings captured sensation rather than precise detail, suggesting that the experience of seeing could be as important as the accuracy of depiction. The next generation pushed these experiments further. Painters like Vincent van Gogh, Paul Gauguin, and Paul Cézanne began transforming color and form into expressive tools. Their work suggested that painting could move beyond observation and begin constructing its own emotional language. Matisse absorbed these influences while searching for his own artistic direction. Born in northern France in 1869, he originally studied law and worked briefly as a clerk. Painting entered his life almost accidentally when he began drawing during a period of illness. Yet the experience transformed his life, leading him toward a career devoted entirely to art. By the early 20th century, Paris had become a laboratory of artistic experimentation. Painters gathered in studios and cafes, discussing how art might evolve in the modern world. Industrialization, photography, and rapid social change were altering how people experienced reality. Many artists believed that painting needed a new language to express this changing world. For Matisse, the answer was color. He believed colors could interact with each other like musical notes in a composition. When placed together carefully, they could create harmony, tension, or emotional intensity. In this sense, painting could function less like a window into reality and more like a visual arrangement of sensations. Other artists soon joined these experiments. Among them was André Derain, whose landscapes exploded with fiery tones and energetic brushwork. Another was Maurice de Vlaminck, whose dramatic use of color transformed quiet countryside scenes into emotionally charged images. Although critics mocked the group, younger artists began paying close attention. The freedom of Fauvist color suggested that painting no longer needed to obey traditional expectations. Instead of imitating reality, artists could reinterpret it according to emotion, rhythm, and visual harmony. One of the most ambitious works from this period was The Joy of Life. The large canvas presents a dreamlike landscape filled with reclining figures, musicians, and dancers. The space unfolds in gentle curves, while the colors glow with warm intensity across the surface. The figures appear relaxed and timeless, almost like characters from ancient pastoral myths. Yet the painting also feels unmistakably modern. Perspective collapses into decorative shapes, and the landscape becomes a field of color rather than a realistic environment. Artists who encountered the painting were deeply affected by it. Among them was Pablo Picasso, who studied the work while developing ideas that would soon lead toward Cubism. In this way, Fauvism quietly influenced the next major transformation in modern art. Matisse continued exploring color relationships in later works. In Harmony in Red, an interior scene dissolves into an overwhelming field of deep red. Patterns spread across the tablecloth and walls, merging surfaces together and flattening the illusion of depth. Rather than creating perspective, the painting emphasizes decorative rhythm. Objects appear arranged within a tapestry of color, transforming the room into a carefully balanced visual composition. Through works like this, Matisse demonstrated that emotional harmony could emerge directly from color relationships. Another powerful example appears in Dance Eye. 5 simplified figures hold hands and move together in a circular dance across a hill. The composition uses only a few colors: red figures, green earth, and blue sky, yet the movement feels energetic and universal. The circle of dancers suggests rhythm, unity, and the shared energy of human life. Despite its simplicity, the painting communicates powerful emotion through color and movement alone. It demonstrates how far painting had traveled from its earlier commitment to realism. Despite the excitement surrounding these experiments, the Fauvist movement itself was surprisingly short-lived. The group never formed a strict manifesto or unified theory, and by the end of the decade, many of its artists were already searching for new directions. The explosive use of color that shocked audiences in 1905 had opened possibilities that extended far beyond the movement itself. Some painters began focusing on structure rather than color. Artists like Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque started breaking objects into geometric fragments, developing what would soon become Cubism. Others moved toward emotional distortion and dramatic symbolism, helping inspire the rise of Expressionism across Germany and Central Europe. Even though Fauvism existed for only a brief moment between roughly 1905 and 1910, its impact on modern art was enormous. The movement permanently altered the way artists understood color. After the Fauves, color could no longer be treated as a simple decorative tool used to imitate nature. It had become an independent force within painting itself. This shift changed the direction of 20th century art. Once color was liberated from strict realism, artists began exploring how it could create atmosphere, rhythm, and psychological intensity. Painters discovered that emotional meaning could emerge from the relationships between colors themselves, rather than from the objects being depicted within the scene. In the decades that followed, countless artists would continue expanding the possibilities that Fauvism revealed. Expressionists intensified emotional color, abstract painters eliminated representation entirely, and modern designers adopted bold palettes in architecture, posters, and textiles. The idea that color could shape perception became one of the defining principles of modern visual culture. Looking back today, the outrage that greeted the paintings in 1905 seems almost inevitable. When artists fundamentally change the visual language of culture, the first reaction is rarely acceptance. Instead, viewers experience confusion, discomfort, and even ridicule. What appears chaotic at first often turns out to be the beginning of a new artistic vocabulary. Over time, however, the shock fades. The same colors that once seemed outrageous slowly become familiar. Viewers begin to recognize the harmony and intention behind what initially appeared reckless. The wild energy of Fauvism gradually settles into the broader history of art, where its innovations start to feel almost natural. Yet it is important to remember how radical these paintings once felt. In 1905, audiences were confronting a completely new way of thinking about color. Instead of describing the visible world, color was suddenly creating its own emotional reality. This shift transformed painting from a mirror of nature into a language of sensation. In that sense, Fauvism represents more than a brief artistic experiment. It marks a turning point in how artists understood their role. Painters were no longer obligated to imitate the world faithfully. Instead, they could reshape it, exaggerate it, or reinterpret it according to feeling and imagination. The painters once mocked, as wild beasts had opened a door that could never be closed again. Through their fearless use of color, they demonstrated that painting could communicate emotion directly, without relying on strict realism. This idea would echo through nearly every major art movement that followed. Today, the works of Henri Matisse and his contemporaries hang quietly in museums around the world. Visitors admire their vibrant colors and balanced compositions, often forgetting how controversial these paintings once were. What was once shocking has become part of the foundation of modern art. Yet if we look carefully, we can still sense the moment of rupture these paintings represent. In their glowing colors and simplified forms lies the memory of a radical decision, the moment when artists realized that color did not need permission from reality. It could speak entirely on its own. Fauvism asked a radical question: what if color didn't need to describe reality at all? In the next episode, we'll follow that idea even further, to the moment painters began abandoning reality completely, leading to the first truly abstract works by Wassily Kandinsky. The story of modern art continues here on Crossroads of Art.